Hello YouTube, Liverpool fan in Japan here, the Miyazaki man Sai, and today we're going to be talking about Ryan Gravenberch, a very interesting player. I know the fan base are split. Should we sign him? Should we not sign him? Is he a cheaper version of Kefran Turam? Defensive qualities, where does he fit in? Is he a backup? He's expensive, he failed at Bayern Munich. Lots of these points are floating around. I want to give you a slightly different perspective on why Jurgen Klopp probably identified 12 months ago Ryan Gravenberch as a very high potential target for Liverpool. Ryan Gravenberch, a player and the person as a package, Liverpool FC, the current season squad, and also Liverpool FC as a club for Ryan Gravenberch. So let's get into it. So we know he's currently at Bayern Munich, and this proper lush shirt looks like Bayern Munich's one anyway, right? 50% off. So the narrative in terms of transfer desires for this transfer window from our fan base have been we need a destroyer, a defensive midfielder, a number 6, a pivot, an anchorman, a holding player at the base. But it's ever so slightly misconstrued, because let me give you an example, right? So let's look at the world's best midfielder back in the day, Alonso, Mascherano and Gerrard, right? You'd be thinking Mascherano is the one shielding defence, number 6 in front of the defence. But hold on, where would that put Alonso? In the current state of play, Alonso is the one centrally holding the position. You would term him as the holding midfielder because the ball gets hit into Alonso. He is the pivot player, the distributor, who pings the ball around, who controls the tempo of the game. He's the one that's always got to be available. So the number 8s in and around him, especially Mascherano being a closer one out of the three, he's the one who's going to do the job to open the space for Alonso to receive the pass and distribute the ball. Additionally, any attacking threats, Mascherano is the one that's going to close them down. That's not typically a holding midfield player, because a holding midfield player has to hold the position, hold the line, bring the fullbacks in line, tighten up the space. Either centre backs acts as that free as a shield, or it's going to be a tight free unit, which is a little bit hard because Gerrard is a bit YOLO, he goes a bit everywhere. So Mascherano is going to be the side midfielder who goes in and around the area, patrolling, hounding the offensive number 10, the playmaker, the Mazzala as a wild pit bull that he is. And it's Alonso who's going to be cute, holding that position to prevent the breaks, but also ready in a position to get the ball, to distribute the ball. Similarly, I think Liverpool have the same kind of setup in mind. So when you look at Fabinho in that role, Fabinho is a rare breed and a rare beast. He is very pivotal to why we've been very successful. He's not just a hoover, which is the defensive destroyer, he's the lighthouse as well. He gives us vision, he gives us guidance, because his distribution, short and long, is on point. He's got that Brazilian flair, those techers. He is actually very good at progressing the ball, and perhaps not running with the ball, but his ball playing skills were actually very underrated. Of course, he's a destroyer, his slide tackling, his aerial ability, his ability to block and put that wall up in front of the defence was very good. But it's really a distributor and a disciplined player you want in that position, and having signed Endo, I think we are covered. We are more or less covered in the holding midfield player, the pivot player, the anchorman, okay? Not the destroyer, but the anchorman, that person who plays right in front of the two centre backs. Additionally, Endo at Stuttgart is part of a two-man pivot sometimes as well, and next to him was that dedicated destroyer, but that destroyer doesn't necessarily sit there. He is the one that roams around and engages to try to win ball, but Endo had these qualities as well, which also allowed Endo to be a bit more box to box and be a bit more of an offensive, creative player as well, bring out the other side of Endo, because he can go box to box. He has got some creative elements, but for the national team, Endo is the one who's disciplined, sitting there, bringing people into position, holding the line there as well. So when we look at targets, I think we're pretty much okay in that position. Endo, McAllister, that is pretty good, because they give you that base, that fulcrum, that foundation to receive the ball, to distribute the ball, to break up play, to be tight and to be disciplined, okay? Stefan Bajcetic, he is the one that I think will break into those spots as well, because he also is very aggressive, very good at pressing, he's very press resistant, and he's very good at distributing and playing the ball between the lines as well. So Endo, McAllister and Bajcetic, I think, cover that position in front of the defence quite well, at least sufficiently for now, okay? Which is why I believe Andre and Gravenberch, talks of them coming in as defensive midfielder, are a bit premature, because you need a little bit of experience or know-how or that discipline to keep your position in there. And Andre is more progressive and Gravenberch is definitely more progressive. Andre being of the passing type, Gravenberch being more kind of physical and technical of the role. And this is something that's very important about Gravenberch as well. You look at him, he's big, he's over 6 foot, right? You'd be thinking, similar to Kefran Turam, he's a powerhouse, he runs with the ball, and he can run with the ball, right? That is one of his qualities as well. But he's a very technically adept player. When you watch Gravenberch, you can tell that he's of that Dutch mentality, the Ajax school of one touch tiki-taka, 1, 2, he drops a shoulder, he does a turn, he's got the awareness and the vision. As a package, he reminds me of, and also he should be aspiring to, a very young Clarence Seedorf. Now Clarence Seedorf for me is one of the most underrated midfield generals, masters of all time. He can do every role in midfield, whether it's the box to box, the holding discipline, attacking, forward, long shots. Wow, he can crack the ball. He can chase back into the channels into fullback areas. He can go down the wings and provide width. Clarence Seedorf, all-around package. Fantastic midfielder. But what you have with Ryan Gravenberch is the fact that pretty similar elements and attributes to young Clarence Seedorf. Now, he doesn't have that consistent long-range shooting, right? But Clarence Seedorf, when he was young, he always wanted to play. He always wanted to ball. He always wanted to be centre of attention. He'd get involved in absolutely everything. Brilliant technically as well. I mean, whole different level of technicality, Clarence Seedorf midfield. Anyway, one thing that actually makes Ryan Gravenberch very, very attractive to Liverpool, and specifically Liverpool, he is Dutch. Dutch captain Virgil van Dijk is there to guide him. Additionally, Van Dijk and Gakpo can give a character reference of Ryan Gravenberch. Klopp would stay a million miles away if he was not endorsed as a character, as a person, with the ability and technical skills in the Dutch national team. Van Dijk, Gakpo will know all about him. Additionally, right, Van Dijk being that captain, wow, what a leader, what an inspiration. If Gravenberch wants to cement his place in the Dutch national team to get a good word into the coach, Van Dijk is there for him. Additionally, Gakpo, model professional, hard worker. He's driven, he wants to win, he's got that enthusiastic, energetic ability behind the scenes as well. Gakpo fits right in. Cody son, yes, Gravenberch could fit right in with the Dutch maestros there. The three predators absolutely could be a long stay of Liverpool. So there's a lot of upside there in terms of personal characteristics, and people say like, but he wants to play all the time. He's not going to play at Liverpool. He didn't play at Bayern Munich. Yeah, it's true. He didn't play all that much in Bayern Munich. Came on as a sub majority of the time. But isn't that the attitude that you want? A young, aspiring, talented player who wants to play all the time? And let's put this into perspective, okay? Let's take the humanistic side of it. You play for a team, in my case, field hockey team. If the coach doesn't fancy you and doesn't pick you next season, even if you go Gambale, 100%, give your best, try your best, impress, dress to impress, work to impress, whatever to impress. Not dress to impress, maybe. Yeah, so Gravenberch may not think he'll ever get into Thomas Tuchel's mind in terms of being able to break into that starting 11, especially for the reasons that I mentioned, Kimmich and Goretzka being disciplined to hold the line so Musiala can go and do his thing. But at Liverpool, new start, coach in Jurgen Klopp, who gives Trent Alexander-Arnold the right back slot and says, you own the shirt, you proved to me you deserve to keep the shirt, and he kept it. Stefan Bajcetic last season, what a player, thrown into the deep end, does the job. He has a cheeky personality in training as well, probably impresses Klopp, but he's got the technical discipline, the attitude and the persona about him. Also Bajcetic, centre half role quite well as well. But anyway, the youngsters get a chance to impress Klopp in this team. Ben Doak on for Mohamed Salah. Doesn't matter how old you are, if you impress, if you have that enthusiasm, if you show Klopp that you're fit into the function, into the system, have the affinity to actually what he's trying to do in terms of kind of philosophy and style of play, you're going to get in there. So Ryan Gravenberch having a new start, and it is a new start, giving 100% in training and showing what he's about, personality, in terms of attributes, in terms of ability, that leans itself more to him getting a potential starting slot than giving 110% in Bayern Munich, because Thomas Tuchel has already got an impression of Gravenberch and an opinion about him, and obviously he doesn't rate him that highly, otherwise he wouldn't be open to letting him leave. And it says a lot as well that Bayern Munich are after holding defensive pivot midfield player, an anchorman, because that is not Gravenberch. Gravenberch is not that dedicated single number 6. He is the number 8 who helps in all phases of the midfield battle. And this is where it gets very interesting and very exciting for me. He's a bit of everything. He's a wild card. He's a bit of a wild gambit. Is there any area that he's really proficient and really, really strong in? He's definitely not upper echelons in any of the particular areas you'd associate with a number 8. He's willing to track back. He's willing to cover. He's willing to chase his man. He's willing to hold a position in the midfield if that is his given role. He can burst forward with the ball. He tries to spray the ball. Not always accurately. He tries to break the lines as well. Not always as efficiently as beautifully as, let's say, Szoboszlai or Gakpo. He can play the tiki-taka. He can play the one-touch. He can dribble. He can turn a man. He can do a bit of everything really. And that's what I think Klopp has tried to evolve this midfield to do. fact that you have Trent inverting into that kind of pseudo 6 to distribute the ball, right? If you're free at the back, the midfielders have to be very tactically flexible to account for all of the shifting dynamics of the midfield. So you have to have an element of discipline, defense, offensive transition, passing, tackling, moving the ball at pace, slowing the ball down. You have to have a bit of everything. And McAllister, Szoboszlai, Endo, even Gakpo, Bajcetic, Elliott, Curtis Jones. You would not say there's a specialist amongst them who can only do one function in the midfield. This is one of the most tactically flexible Liverpool midfields that I can remember in recent memories. Except that time, of course, when we had Diao, Sheru, Biscan. Gone are the days when you want your holding midfielder just to destroy and give the ball to someone better. The reason behind that is, if you have your Mascherano as the deepest lying player, not your Pirlo, not your Alonso, for example, okay, the most dangerous way to lose the ball is giving a simple pass sideways or even backwards. Backwards is more rare, but a sideways pass puts you straight under the cosh, under pressure, breaks your own defensive line if it's intercepted. Passing forwards is more acceptable to lose the ball, but then again, why would you want to put the responsibility on a Mascherano, on a Gattuso, to break the lines to play the ball to Pirlo and Alonso? You don't. You want them to be the first person to receive it on the turn, distribute the ball. They've got the vision, they know what to do. The ball arrives at their feet and off it goes into play. So whoever is in that central pivot role has to have a bit of technical know-how and experience with them, or just outstanding technical quality. In this case, Thiago, Endo, McAllister fit that first line very, very well. But then on either side of them, to close in, to provide that shield in front of the defence when you want to close off the centre, Szoboszlai, Gakpo, Curtis Jones, Elliott, they're all very, very adept at pressing and closing the space. Okay, some of them have a bit of naivety about them, some may do it better than others, but there's no doubt whatsoever that they all will do it, otherwise they'll never get into Klopp's team, even off the bench. They have to be willing to do that element of the game. And then in your offensive transition, when you've broken the line, or when you've progressed yourself into that triangle pivot between the winger and the fullback, they have to know, is the turn available? Is the 1-2 available? Is the layoff available? Do I need to switch it? Do I need to give it back? They need to be on a half turn and be in that positional awareness to affect that transition of the game. Otherwise, they're not going to get picked in that number 8 slot in terms of getting it in an offensive transition. It's just not going to happen. They've got to be able to overlap, go out wide, provide the width if Salah cuts inside, if Luis Diaz cuts inside. Hence why Gakpo is a natural fit on the left. Elliott is very, very good on the right hand side, and Szoboszlai is very, very good on the right hand side. They've got to cover those half spaces and the wide spaces and the closed defensive spaces. They have to be able to do all of that. And that is where Gravenberch has a bit of everything about him. He can do all of those different phases of the game. Maybe he isn't outstanding. He could grow into that role. A very young Vieira wasn't always outstanding and well-rounded as he, the final form Vieira. What a beast Vieira was. As Micah Richards said, he's got that dog in him. You don't want to fight against Vieira and Yaya Toure. You get massacred. I mean, just imagine that Harvey Elliott on the turn and there's just Vieira one side and Yaya Toure the other side. Crunch. The hair would just go. I digress. I think he almost tries too hard and want to have those highlight reel and highlight moments, because he's not the best in terms of the Fabinho lunging tackle or the pressuring of players or nicking the ball, getting the foot in there, which is why some people criticise his defensive qualities. But in the Klopp system, where all of the midfielders have a bit about them in terms of being able to transition into a different area of midfield and do their role, I think he's quite suitable. Now, when you look at Bayern Munich, okay, Jamal Musiala, absolute amazing wonder kid. You need to give him the freedom to express himself. Kimmich and Goretzka, even though Goretzka can go a bit more box to box, were disciplined to hold that line in front of the defence to give Musiala the ability to play, okay, to roam and to play. And this is for me why statistics are a bit of a misnomer, really, because statistics can give you an indication of past performance and what a player is capable of based on a particular context. So last season's formation, last season's team, last season's manager, the way of playing, the teammates, the opposition, who was in the team at the time. Loads and loads of variables and factors determine what the statistics could end up being. Let me give you an example, okay? So if you set up a trap, i.e. the 2-8 pressure someone into the zone of the fullback and that sided centre back, it's going to be the centre back who wins the ball, therefore, you know, makes a turnover of the ball, wins the interception, stats up, wahey. But the one that caused that turnover was the number 8, and you can't see that in the statistic. You might only see it as a pressure, right? A 1+2, a pressure. But statistics can be misleading because of your particular role in the system, the particular style, the traps that are set. What is the ethos of the team in terms of trying to turn over the ball? Is it guiding them into an area where you are favoured in terms of outnumbering them? Is it similar to Bolton, whereby you're expected to win the ball airily, let them cross it in, and your turnover is when you win the second ball off the second transition of a clearance? Statistics don't tell you everything. Defensive plays or whatever can be improved based on the system that you are put inside. And the most easy way to kind of discredit some of the statistical analysis for ruling out a player is if you've got an obviously quality player and he's having a patch of bad form, or he had a bad season, or whatever, the system didn't suit him. Let's say, for example, Mikel Antonio going, David Moyes' West Ham system didn't suit Scamacca. Scamacca's stats were crap. It doesn't make Scamacca crap. It's just that system didn't employ what Scamacca would be strong at, and therefore it can't reflect in the statistics appropriately, because there's not even a chance for him to get the opportunity to raise those statistics. So what's really important when judging a potential transfer, statistical analysis, yes, in the context that they were produced, and additionally the narrative behind those statistics as well give you a fuller story, but the eye test as well, and also the vision for what role you think that player will have in your prospective team, or what they can bring to your team in terms of player attributes right now for the current season. Okay, and this is on the kind of technical side of things before we look at the narrative around long-term suitability for the club, resale value, age, personality, profile, leadership skills, a whole bunch of, you know, variables that come into play when you sign a player. Let's look at Iago Aspas, for example, our boy Aspas with the legendary corner, who after that season with Liverpool would ever give him a chance based on statistics, but when he's back at Celta Vigo banging them in, wow, he looks a very technical, very gifted kind of Fabrizio Micoli kind of player as well. Beautiful, beautiful player. It's all about circumstance. Speaking of circumstance, there's a lot of circumstantial variables that make it much more easier for someone like Gravenberch to settle and really enjoy life in Liverpool and the Premier League. Obviously that Dutch contingent we spoke about already. The fact that his English should be on par and you know, pretty good. He's used to the league style, right? The Bundesliga statistically and stylistically the most similar to the Premier League, so the transition should be easier as well. He's trained under a German coach, Tuchel. World-class coach, slightly different style, slightly different approach, but world-class training methods. He should understand the kind of personality traits, pick up some of that kind of tactical acumen from a German coach, world-class training facilities, world-class teammates. He's been training against some of the world's best at Bayern Munich, Bayern München. Whereas someone, you know, sexier name like Andre 3000. No, but basically coming from Fluminense, you know, Brazilian league, how good is his English? Apparently he's been learning English for a while, you know, anticipating a Premier League move. Don't know how good his current English is, but coming from that league and that system, that kind of chaotic, disruptive system that the Fluminense coach wants to implement, really, really fun to watch, by the way. I watched a few clips. It's a harder transition, and that Brazilian contingent, the experienced ones at least, Fabinho, it's gone. It's just Alisson Becker left. Lucas Leiva, little Scales boy, he's gone as well. But you know, there is a South American contingent, but they're more kind of cheeky chappy young Lucho Diaz, Nunes, you know, not quite the same as old school Firmino and Fabinho, but yeah. So yeah, a little bit harder acclimatization. No kind of samba sunny weather there. It might be a little bit harder for Andre to settle in. Obviously he's got aspirations to do well in his football career as well, but many of these signs make it more likely that Gravenberch would settle in easier, I would say, to Liverpool life, Liverpool's environment, the Premier League, and training under Jurgen Klopp. Just my intuition there, obviously, but Gravenberch is not the most disciplined player, which is why he suits a more number 8 sided role in the Liverpool formation. And when you play the box formation, right, you're going to have to get very, very familiar very, very quickly with many aspects of the midfield role, right? The attributes to shift into different areas of midfield, left, right, defensive, attacking. Box can change on a diamond at a whim. So he can form a 2-man pivot at the bottom, which means he's just a body. He has to listen, he has to get in place, whether it's Endo or Van Dijk or whoever, bring him into position to shield that defense, cover your man, cover the lines, bring him to a certain area. Or if he's on a number 8 position, he's got the technical ability to lay it off, to give and go, to 1-2, to turn, or to drive with force. Okay, we talked in the last video about Szoboszlai and Gakpo being able to break the lines, break that first line, and transition and go with power, bursting run. So Gravenberch has that in his locker. He's got that kind of long, gangly leg. He can go with power and force, but he doesn't always look as in control or as authoritative as Szoboszlai breaking the lines or Gakpo breaking the lines. Okay, so something he can work on. He can do it, but it doesn't always look like he's fully in control, if that makes sense. Additionally, I don't think he has the vision in his mind of what he needs to do when he reaches the end point of his current action. And what I mean by that is certain players already know I'm doing a certain thing for a certain result. If I were to beat that man and beat that press, I'm going to lay it off to Lucho Diaz on the left. I'm going to whip it over onto the right hand side, probably release Salah, or play a 1-2 and break the lines and try to go myself or whatever. I think he's trying too hard to impress at the moment, and what I think Gravenberch's biggest weakness is tactical. It doesn't seem as though he knows his exact role in the team and what he should be doing when a certain action is completed. And that is why Jurgen Klopp might be having a cheeky smirk right now, because if he gets a player like Ryan Gravenberch into the team under the tutelage of Van Dijk, all the players in and around him guiding him and what to do, especially Thiago Alcantara, what a role model that would be. When your opposite 8 breaks the lines, when the opposition are coming on you in this way, when the transition and the free man is over the other side, this, Ryan Gravenberch, is what you do in every single situation. Drill it into him repetitively, get the trust in the teammate, the cohesiveness, basically the muscle memory in his technical ability for that particular function and role, but additionally the trust in the teammates in and around him. He will be part of a triangle. On the left hand side where it's Robertson and Lucho Diaz, even Jota or Gakpo. On the right hand side it'll be him, Salah, Trent, for example. He will know what his function is in the team, and he will know when to release it, when to burst forward, when opportunity is there, when he's got to tuck in, when he's got to pivot, when he's got to hold position. If Klopp can get that mindset and that muscle memory and that tactical acumen into Gravenberch, he has a lot of attributes that are really there for exploiting and becoming a monster player. He's very, very tall, but he's not great in the air. Is that a weakness? Not necessarily, because as I mentioned, Liverpool are a very, very tall team, right? You don't have to be the physically imposing, dominant aerial beast that scores a goal like Van Dijk, even Konate sometimes. He can make the run to the near post and flick it on. The height will give him the ability to flick it on into the area that we've already signalled for, which gives us the higher percentage for a person who can finish it with his head to finish it. I think there was some discussion about a set piece specialist whereby the people who are blocking and the people who are shoving players out of position to make space for the second phase header to score the goal. The first player doesn't have to be the most adept or physically imposing, but if they are tall and they make the right movements at the right timing, the likelihood is they will be in a position to do what's easier of the two roles rather than scoring, flicking it on or moving it on into the position of scoring. He could be that, right? Very tall team. Gakpo, Konate, Van Dijk, Gravenberch, Matip. Jota's good in the air. Lucho Diaz is good with his head. Jota's good with his head. Núñez is tall, good with his head. There's so many options here, and by playing him in one of the midfield roles, you add another threat potentially through the height, and not necessarily via scoring, but as I mentioned, being able to transition the ball in the air to the right place to score the goal. And from game commencement as well, how many times does Fabinho Tavares win the ball, right? So from a goal kick, from a kickoff, from a set piece, the tall defensive unit has also a function to get rid of the ball. And in this way, it doesn't have to be elegant or great in the air. He can still win the ball or clear the danger, right? So him, Endo, Van Dijk, all of the tall players, good players in the air, they can clear the ball out. It's a really, really important function when you're under the cosh, getting battered, especially by those physical teams. You need a player like him in there. Okay. We got to talk about some negatives as well. That wage, the supposed wage of what is it, 152 odd grand a week. Wow, that's some mega moolah for some player who's still in development. Look at the teams who are after Gravenberch. Manchester United, Bayern Munich signed him directly, right? Liverpool are after him as well. For that package and that potential and that role, a rough diamond, right, who can be moulded into any of the midfield positions. He will never be the out-and-out enforcer. He will never be the tempo maestro like Thiago. But he has a bit of everything. So any given role that he finds himself in that midfield, no matter the starting position, he has something to offer in that role that's different than all of our other midfielders. Because our other midfielders are kind of defined in their role, even though they're multifaceted. Like Szoboszlai, he's got the shot, he's got the bursting run, he's got the silkiness and intelligence. McAllister, obviously on the turn, little maestro, little Luka Modric, connecting the play together. He's feisty, he's got a dog in him as well. Elliot, pseudo right winger, interchangeable with Salah, silky, left-footed. Curtis Jones, we mentioned his kind of all-around ability as a kind of ball retainer, ball winner. Gravenberch, I would say, complements that set of midfielders nicely in his versatility and also his physical attributes and his technical attributes. He is very well versed in that tiki-taka 1-2 little side shuffle, dropping the shoulder, and that's very unexpected for such a tall player. He is actually quite silky, but looks a bit ungainly, and it doesn't look the smoothest, especially when he's running. Can be worked on. High potential there. Price tag should be fair. Don't imagine it above £30 million. He signed for what, £22 million? We were somewhere in between, I'm guessing 25, £28 million left over budget, potentially for left-sided centre-half, but do you really need a left-sided centre-half? Look at the options that could play there. Apart from Van Dijk, all the other centre-backs can still play there. Gomez, Matip, Bajcetic, Endo. Potential options, Kwanzaa. They can all still play there. Is it the most high priority position right now? It's hard to say because it depends on the system and where Klopp's priorities are. But as an overall functioning midfield and as a squad, that midfield is actually looking pretty tasty. There's a lot of versatility, a lot of options there, a lot of dog, a lot of fight, a lot of technical ability. Very excited to see how it performs. Endo, Szoboszlai, McAllister, first choice for me. Gakpo can fill in on the left, Curtis Jones can fill in anywhere. Harvey Elliott on the right hand side, Bajcetic, well, I like him, I really like him. Either pivot or number 8, who's deployed 8 as well. Onwards and upwards red, midfield's becoming a strength. And Thiago Alcantara and Wataru Endo, they are the ones who will bring it home, baby. The experienced, cool model pros, hold their position, know the game inside out, which channels to go into. Wow, that midfield, from a moment of weakness to what we have now, the creme de la creme. It isn't the creme de la creme, but it's quite good. I mean, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Thiago. Let's win the league, baby. Thank you once again for watching this video. If you really enjoyed it, a like helps me beat the algorithm, gets this video seen. I'm hoping you're enjoying my analysis. I'm doing what I can when I can. Subscribe if you haven't already. Lots of Liverpool content coming up. Very exciting video next, slightly away from Liverpool, but very close to my heart. Major news for me. Until next time, when we batter Newcastle, Miyazaki man, Ichiban, take care.